What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about how Trump could screw over Canada in 2026. Well, welcome to the new year. We made it. And what a year it's been, right? Like, who could have possibly even imagined that the US Canada relationship would end up looking like this, like it does today, a year ago, you know? So it kind of got me wondering, what will things look like a year from now, you know? So today, I want to take a look at this video talking about what could be in store for Canada and the US coming up soon here this year. So let's take a look.
With us now is CTV News U.S. political analyst Eric Ham. Eric, good to have you back once again, this time as we kind of take a step away from the here and now and look ahead to next year. What are the political stakes for Donald Trump when it comes to those negotiations that are expected, or the renewal, the re-examination of the Canada-U.S.-Mexico trade deal?
Right. That feels like maybe the most pressing matter coming up between the United States and Canada because, like, to be completely honest, it feels like the negotiations between Canada and the US, this supposed trade agreement, or getting somewhere on like the tariffs or any kind of discussion on all of that has completely stalled. And there have really been no real updates on that. And that's largely because of Donald Trump, on our part, to be fair. So, something that's coming up that's unavoidable is like the renegotiation of this really big US Canada Mexico trade agreement that, of course, it just figures that, like, because the drama can never stop. Something had to be coming up, you know, something had to happen, and this feels like the next thing that has to happen.
So many people, of course, are looking ahead to the midterm elections, but there are going to be so many political landmines for this administration to have to deal with even before we get to November. And perhaps I think the biggest is going to be what will take place with those negotiations over Kuzma, because we know already the president has signaled that he could and perhaps likely will walk away from this massive trade deal. And that's going to have
What? Wait, what? I'm, I'm the American here, and I didn't even know that. So where we're at is that Trump has said that in all likelihood he will step away from the negotiations of this trade deal. Not like, I know that he was coming up with like a list of demands, and things to renegociate. But that implies renegotiation if you're coming up with demands or changes, Whether those are fair or whatever, that is certainly debatable, but it seemed like some kind of discussion was going to happen. This is so incredibly disappointing to hear. That it sounds like it won't even get that far. It's just going to be more of the same, where the U.S. is just not talking to, not negotiating with Canada. That's just our policy now. That's so, besides being completely like unfair and kind of childish, boring, and yeah. So a lot of these policies that are in effect right now are hurting a lot of people, like in a very real way, financially first and foremost. And I don't know. It's probably it's just as frustrating for, like, I think a lot of Americans who are hurt by tariffs, and a lot of Canadians who are hurt by these trade policies, to hear that, like, there's not even going to be any discussion over it.
Likely will walk away from this massive trade deal, and that's going to have enormous economic implications, not only for the United States, but for Canada as well. And certainly, given the cooling economy right now, the jobs outlook in terms of rising inflation and unemployment, those and what the president does on that trade agreement will certainly have a tremendous impact on all of that. And what the president does.
From what I understand, the Kuzma trade agreement decides an enormous amount of the trade policy between Canada, U.S., Mexico. If I remember, I think even some of the stuff that Trump and the U.S. government has done in regards to the trade policies against Canada actually violated Kuzma in many ways. Which, man, doesn't that beg the question, what's even the point of it all?
Will have tremendous meaning for the global outlook as well.
The conversation surrounding this deal, Eric, has become so important here in Canada, of course, but do we have any signals on what it is that could potentially make Trump walk away from this?
So this is a big topic of discussion in Canada, because I really, like, it just goes to show you how here in the United States, like, the stuff that we prioritize, it's obviously, like, the top news right now is all the Venezuela stuff going on, obviously, but I haven't heard, like, not that I watch too much, like, mainstream TV, old school news. I watch a lot of news on, like, YouTube and social media stuff, and even with all that and some of the television that I've seen, I haven't heard any of this stuff from the American point of view that we care at all about the Kuzma and this. So anyway, yeah, it's just funny to hear how this is, like, very, very, very important. And Canadians seem to understand that and are discussing it and want to talk about it. And Americans don't even seem to be aware.
Well, it's his own words, and what we've heard specifically and directly from his U.S. trade representative back in November when public meetings began in earnest here in the United States. And of course, the administration was hearing from a number of key individuals and organizations as it relates to Kuzma. What we kept hearing over and over, even as industry and academics and others were singing the praises of this regional free trade agreement, it was the administration itself that continued to say that they believe Canada was giving the United States a raw deal, and the president could very well walk away. Now, all of this.
A raw deal, as in, like, a bad deal? Like, I don't know, it's a weird choice of words, because a raw deal, I think he means, like, an unfair deal. Canada is giving the U.S., us, the U.S., the us, the unfair deal? What? This has my brain scrambled, going backwards. What? Oh, nobody told me. Why didn't anyone tell me? Oh, it's Canada being unfair to the United States. You guys are picking on us. Ah, why? Okay, now I get it. Wow, someone should have told me.
This could be about negotiating tactics. We know Donald Trump is very good at trying to set the stage for that. But nevertheless, given how the president has talked about Canada and, more importantly, how he's acted, again, this is very much, I think, a very real concern.
All right, so from negotiating tactics now to military action, Eric, and when we look at what's happened recently, the tankers in Venezuela, the presence in Greenland, I mean, these are big military moves. What could they signal for next year?
Yeah, obviously this is, like, the biggest news, the Venezuela stuff. And no matter what your thoughts on that, obviously, how should I say this? I think for the most part, everybody can agree that, like, evil dictators are bad. Wherever they exist in the world, they are bad. At the same time, there are international laws and stuff that you need. The rule of law needs to be obeyed in regards to all that. And anyway, there's just so many aspects to this whole thing that I won't even get into right now. But I think what's relevant to this discussion is, like, are Canadians at all, like, I'm sure there are Canadians who are like in agreement with what happened. Removing the dictator from Venezuela seems to be a decent amount of people in Venezuela who support what happened, even though technically it was illegal. What the US did to remove the dictator was illegal, so that's breaking the law, but you're doing it to, combat evil. But it's Trump, so his motivations aren't like altruistic. Trump's not doing this whole thing out of the kindness of his heart. It's probably for the Venezuela oil, but I don't know. He might have done something good for the wrong reasons. Or, there's a whole, you could just go on and on. But what I'm interested in is are Canadian, does this like make Canadians nervous seeing the United States like actually use the military, go into a foreign country and literally remove their I've heard that he wasn't technically the president, but I'll call him the president, or they had an illegitimate election, but their leader at the time. We went in with force and removed their leader and, didn't like take over the country, but in a sense, kind of. And we have plans for the country. Like we have plans for Venezuela. It's complicated, but I would think from the outside, if you're Canada, who has been like threatened by Trump in the past, it's kind of, you might support or might not support what happened in Venezuela, but it might be scary, regardless of what you think. It might be scary to see what the U.S. is willing to do, something like that. I really, from the bottom of my heart, don't believe we would ever do that to Canada, but that's me, an American, saying that. I'm not the one under threat, So maybe I have a compromised or biased point of view on that. Anyway, yeah, that's definitely something that I was thinking about with the whole Venezuela thing. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is something that Canada also should be deeply, deeply worried about. Just recently, we have seen missile strikes in Nigeria. The president has named an envoy to actually negotiate Greenland becoming part of the United States. And when Donald Trump came into office, he made clear that he would be willing to use what he called economic force to actually take Canada as well. And so,
exactly, it's so, man, yeah, let us never forget some of the things Donald Trump has literally said about Canada, about using not military force, but economic force to damage Canada, to hurt it, to weaken it. And now, like, with this recent stuff, the U.S. using military force on another country, for better or for worse. Regardless, that has to be scary.
So when you look at the military aggression in Venezuela, Canada has an enormous amount of vast natural resources. And that is what the play is for Donald Trump and his ambitions to bring Canada under U.S. sovereignty has not waned at all this year. In fact, when you look at the moves that we're seeing in places like Greenland, Venezuela, Nigeria, I think that only puts a bigger target on Canada. And I think how the president deals with Kuzma also is going to play massively in his belief and his thinking and his ambitions that Canada should be part of the United States.
Which is...
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. It's all very disturbing. And there's a lot going on. The Kuzma coming up is big. And yeah, I totally get it. It's actually really valuable here to hear like what Canadians kind of think about the whole situation, because like I said, us Americans, we are the ones doing it. We don't all support everything that America does or what Donald Trump does, or but in a sense, as Americans, we are doing it. We're here. We're the country. We are the citizens. It's affecting other people. Not us. We're attacking Venezuela. It's not us who are under attack. We're threatening Canada. It's not us we're threatening. So, yeah, it's like good to hear these outside points of view. That's what I think a lot of Americans never take that opportunity or bother to hear like what people outside of the US think about everything that we are doing, because it's a very different perspective.
Notable, Eric, that that's still very much on the radar because in Canada, of course, the reaction to the entire 51st state suggestion conversation has been everything from, laughing it off as a joke to that very serious message of Canada is not for sale. But this is still very much in Trump's sights.
Absolutely, it is. And it hasn't gone away, which is surprising because oftentimes when Donald Trump says things like this, wanting Greenland, oftentimes we see it as bluster, that this is the president being just a master showman.
That's right. Greenland. Freaking Greenland.
But when you look at actions, Canada is still the only G7 nation that does not have a free trade agreement with the United States, save for CUSMA. The president continues to see tariffs as a really good thing, even though they're debilitating both for the U.S. and Canadian economy. And more importantly, we're talking about more than a century of friendship, alliance, and partnership. And Donald Trump has already attempted in every way imaginable to blow that up. And the reason...
I like this guy. I like this guy. I don't know who he is. He's a journalist or something, but he doesn't mince words. It's funny, like hearing it so blatantly. Like Trump has made taken every possible chance to blow up the relationship that Canada and the U.S. had. That's true.
Of course, is the president believes that he can weaken Canada and in doing so, make it that much easier for the United States to overtake the nation.
Whoa. Yeah, that's the crux of the whole discussion, isn't it? I still maintain, as an American, for what it's worth, that we will never attack Canada. God forbid. That's insane. But we live in an insane time. That's the only thing. We live in an insane time, so insane things can happen. Otherwise, I'd say it could never happen. God forbid, I hope it doesn't. And I know that most Americans would never support such a thing and don't support such a thing. But, yeah.
Well, before we let you go, Eric, on that note, how are tariffs going for President Trump around the rest of the world? Because we knew that at one time this was very much not just a Canada conversation.
That's right. The president, it's been basically the U.S. versus the world as the United States has placed massive tariffs on all nations across the globe. And that is going to be, again, another sticky issue for the president in 2026 as the Supreme Court is expected to rule once again on tariffs. And this has been Donald Trump's signature economic policy. And the Supreme Court's decision will be crucial because it will ultimately determine where the power to implement tariffs lies, either with the executive branch squarely in Donald Trump's hands or with Congress. And that will certainly shape CUSMA, relations with Canada, and more importantly, what happens with those tariffs.
CTV News U.S.
It's a good point. Yeah, I kind of forgot about the whole Supreme Court thing, where there's still... Why is it taking so long, by the way? Typical politics and government. To come to a judgment over something that's extremely important. Yikes. Determining if what Donald Trump is doing is legal with the tariffs or where the power to enact those even lies within our government. And that will ultimately determine a lot, like he said. That's a good point. Wow. There's a lot coming up soon here. And 2026 has only just started, and there's already so much happening. Who knows where we'll be in a year? That's what I got out of this. Who the heck knows? But, hopefully things can get better. You got to maintain some level of optimism, I think. That's good. Even whether it's realistic or not. And on the same token, with the optimism, you have to be realistic about things. So, take that for what you might. Anyway, if you enjoyed this, feel free to give this video a like. Or leave a comment with your thoughts on sort of the future of the U.S. and Canada, all these crazy things Trump could do to Canada coming up, and that'd be good to hear about, especially from Canadians, and your perspective. That'd be very valuable. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Canada and seeing Canadian things I've never seen before, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.